Welcome back, everybody. As you can see, it is another edition of New Guitar Day. Although this is a replacement guitar, so it's the same guitars we looked at last week, which we'll get to in a moment. But as you can tell, once again, this comes from Amazon, and in their infinite stupidity, once again, they've sent a small guitar box in a giant box. But it does feel like for the second time in a row that they put some packing material in here, and that's just based on picking up the box and not hearing the guitar smash around. So let's just dig in, and as we do, I will tell you that this is the replacement for last week's guitar, the Bullfighter K, which I may or may not have mentioned. It actually does say it on the box. Now, the ad on Amazon is not listed as a K10, but it has an official designation as far as a model number, and yes, they put some meager packing material in here, nothing to write home about, but better than nothing. So, if we see improvements, and they're small improvements, we consider them improvements nonetheless. So here we go. So where did it say K10? And here's where it says K10 right down here. It says model K10. So we do have a model number on this guitar, which is good. I think it's important for companies to give a name to their guitars of some sort. A little tag down here. And these do look like they're fresh from the factory. It doesn't look like there's any over tape, any double taping. I believe the one that we had last week had tape on either end. And I'm expecting pretty much the same experience. I'll be pleasantly surprised if not. But I am expecting, well, that's interesting. Yeah, we lost that. How far can it go? The guitar last week had exploded styrofoam, as you can see, but it didn't have any styrofoam pieces in the box. So maybe someone just pre-exploded. They put these meager little neck supports in, and they do absolutely nothing. So now, it could be my imagination. This one feels lighter than the last one. We're going to weigh it right out of the box. So we'll be right back with that weight. We're low on battery too, so this thing may just go kaput. So I was correct. This one is lighter. This one comes in at 6 pounds even. So keep in mind, with this box, because of dimensional weight, this thing shipped at 14 pounds, and this guitar weighs 6. It looks nice, just like the other one did. It has incredibly sharp fret ends like the other one did, which is too bad. Of course, I'm not surprised at all. It has acoustic strings on it with a wound third, which again I think is a huge mistake on their part. But I'm just going to go plug it in. And as I do, I'll take a look at it. A little bit of smudge there, but no big deal. And then decide whether or not, let's look at the action real quick. The action's high. Again, set up for an acoustic guitar, maybe they think that's acceptable. Probably have to shim the neck. But we'll be back. We're just going to, the main thing I want to see is if it has that annoying buzz that the other one had. So we will be. And welcome back, everybody. Again, it is April the 9th, 2024. And we're back just to do the final comments and review of this guitar. Again, this is the wackiest name on planet Earth, the Bullfighter. And this is the K10 model, which is their thin, truly, it's a thin Telecaster-shaped object. So this is a TOS with a Stratocaster-shaped headstock with a beak to avoid copyright issues. Anyways, So here's my quick rundown on this guitar. There's a lot to like about this guitar if you're looking for something that's sort of unusual and interesting. I'm sure I mentioned it on the first video. The companies, I'm guessing they're young, they need to talk to their ad people, because this guitar makes no mention of built-in effects. I was under the presumption that this would just be a tone, a volume, and a tone and a volume, sort of like a Les Paul setup, one for the humbucker and one for the piezo pickup. But no, there's effects on it, and the effects are, you know, again, they're inexpensive, and they might come in handy under certain circumstances, but for the most part, I have no need for them, so I just keep them dialed off. Two guitars does not make for a sample at all, but I can tell you with the two guitars that I've had, those two are very consistent in some good ways and not so good ways. The not so good ways are the frets on this, again, were painfully sharp. And again, if you've got a little bit of experience and you've got a file and you're comfortable doing it, it's something you can fix fairly easily. But if you don't, then you won't, and you will say, wow, this is just really painful. What am I doing to myself? And this guitar would end up in the closet quick. So that's one strike against it. The action on this is a bit high. On an acoustic guitar setup with just a fixed saddle, you know, you have two choices. You can take the saddle off and you can sand it down, or you can put an X shim in it. Again, if you know how to do it, it's not a big deal. But if you don't know how to do it, again, the brakes are on. So it's important that even, and maybe even more so with these budget guitars, that they're set up out of the box to be reasonably playable. Now, everything in life is a compromise. This guitar shipped with acoustic strings on it, which I have to say, when you're using the piezo pickup, the acoustic strings sound a little sweeter and a little more mellow and a little more gentle. However, when you switch to the humbucker, incredibly anemic. And again, I don't understand the science behind it, but it has something to do with magnetic fields and alloys and whatever. So I put some electric strings on this. So again, the piezo suffers a little bit. It's not quite as warm and acoustic-y, but the humbucker sounds better. So again, there's compromises are to be made. The guitar also suffers from this dreaded 60-cycle hum in the piezo position and in the middle position, which is both of them. When you go to just the humbucker, the hum completely disappears. So that tells me that it's not my guitar cord and it's not my amp and it's not the wiring of the house. From what I've read, it's more to do with a grounding or a shielding issue. Apparently the critical point of shielding on a piezo pickup is the output jack. I haven't opened it up. I wouldn't know what I was looking for. I play guitars, I don't work on them. So that becomes problematic, but two in a row. Now, if you dial back the volume and you're playing, it's not like it overwhelms you. You know, it's sort of like a single coil hum, but a piezo pickup is not a single coil. It's not even a, I believe it's a vibration system, not magnetic. So, I mean, it shouldn't have any hum. So the hum is definitely due to some kind of grounding shielding issue. So they need to work that out. I did mention to them I would really, really, really like this guitar if they would lose the effects. On the other guitar, I opened it up. There are no single potentiometers going in. There's like a, I guess you'd call it a PC board, a little board, and on the other side of it, I guess it has some kind of potentiometer. But that's where the effects are. And again, the effects, for what you're paying, I mean, what would you expect? You're getting a whole guitar. Sorry, we just lost the battery there. Technical glitch. So yeah, for $200, everything's a compromise. Every penny's being counted. Something else that was consistent on this guitar with the other guitars, the tuners were all loose. I don't imagine that's something that gets loose in shipping, because I've gotten many guitars and the tuners were tight. So whoever's working that department just didn't take the extra time to tighten them down. So I tightened them down, now they're nice and tight. Fit and finish on this guitar is outstanding for the price. I mean, outstanding. I don't find any flaws on it at all. It's got nice binding. It has the little double line. I don't know if it's a decal, but they did a really nice job. The finish on the neck is very nice. You don't really feel the open pore. You feel it much more on the back of the guitar. So yeah, I'm very pleased with that. I have to say that that's really nice. Again, as I mentioned in the other one, the actual picture of it, you can see on the video, the camera is recording this lighter than it actually is. It's sort of a dark honey color. It's very pleasant. It's not unpleasant at all. There's really a lot to like about this guitar. I wish, and again, because I put new strings on it, it's incredibly bright. I wish there was some way. I mean, I've got the tone knob literally 99% down, and it's still incredibly bright. And if you turn the tone up at all, it becomes literally shrill. It's brittle. I'm sure all that could be EQ'd out on the amp if I took some time, and I just haven't given it the time yet. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this guitar. I may send it back. I may keep it. My final comment is this, and this is something that most guitar players can appreciate. You get a new guitar and you start playing it, and your first reaction potentially, I'm not saying it is, but potentially is, wow, this doesn't sound like my, and then fill in the missing blank. Doesn't sound like my Les Paul, doesn't sound like my Telecaster, doesn't sound like my Stratocaster. Well, that's the point. The point is if it did sound like that, then what would be the point in getting it? So when you get a different guitar, it takes a little while to acclimate to just what it sounds like, and figuring out how to work with that and to use that to your advantage. And because if you compare it to something that it's not, instant unhappiness, because it's not a Telecaster in the classical sense, it's not a Strat, it's not a Les Paul, it's got its own thing going. Unfortunately or fortunately for this guitar, I have something that's fairly similar to compare it to. I have an IYV that's sort of like a Les Paul shaped object. It has a piezo pickup. It also has a humbucker, but the humbucker's in the bridge position. But I will say that the piezo pickup on that guitar is completely silent. And it's much less shrill than this one is. And it's in the same price point, almost identical. So, you know, I know they're using the least expensive components here. I'm not expecting a Fishman, or I don't know who the top of the line piezo pickup people are. You know, they charge $200, $300, $400 for just their piezo pickup. This one's probably a $10. And again, most of the tonal, sonic complaints, comments, observations that I have, with a little more time, potentially can be dialed in, dialed out. So I still need to work with this, and I'm thinking that if I did keep this guitar, within a week or two, the immediate brightness of brand new strings will start to back off a little bit. And that might very well lend itself in a positive way to the shrillness of this guitar's sonic capabilities. So I wouldn't discourage you from buying this guitar. I wouldn't encourage you to buy this guitar. Right now I'm on the fence. Thus far I think I have the first video up, and this will be the second video. And again, I'm not doing any, as I've said many times, I'm not doing any sound samples because I don't have a setup that would do it justice. Bullfighter has a little 2-minute sound sample, and they didn't take the time to set it up nice, and I can tell you this guitar sounds a lot better than their sound sample. And as a company, they should have known better. They should have taken the time to dial in the sound and put it through a nice amp, and they didn't. It just sounds very lifeless on their little demo. And I can tell you, in person, it sounds much better, at least to my ears. And of course, in the subjective world of art and music, and you know, your mileage may vary. You could hate this guitar, you may love it, but it is its own thing. And the neck is incredibly comfortable for me. It's sort of a thin neck, but I've got smaller hands, so that works fine for me. Don't love the hook, but I don't spend much time looking at the beak or the hook or whatever. They had to do something to sort of, you know, make it different. I don't love the logo. I don't stare at that. But I do like the color. I like the feel. I have no idea what the fretboard's made out of. It's probably some kind of composite sawdust. I put some oil on it. It drank it out. There's absolutely no grain or pores or anything. It's almost like ebony, but I'm certain it's not ebony. And as people pointed out, I don't know if I mentioned this on the last video, the original, I think the first version of this was a classical guitar, and then they did a steel string, and they actually had it where you had the bridge pins, and people were talking about the bridge flying off. Well, this is a string through, so this bridge is going nowhere. There's really no tension on this bridge other than holding it down, because the ball of the string is on the other side and they have a little plate. I'm not sure what it's made out of, but yeah, it's on the other side of the wood. So I mean, if this flies off, we're all in trouble. So that concludes another new guitar day. We're slowing down here only because there's just not much more that I want. That doesn't mean that tomorrow a new one may not show up, because who knows? How many times have I said, oh yeah, we're coming to the end of our adventure, and something else catches my eye? This came out of nowhere. I wasn't looking for it. I just was cruising around on Amazon, and this popped up, and I went, wow, that looks interesting. And the price was right. They've gone up 20 bucks, $199. Again, for a beginner, I would not recommend this guitar, just because there's a few things that you're going to have to do to it to make it dial it in. If you're an experienced player and you want something that's different, and you're comfortable doing things like, you know, filing down the fret ends and maybe putting a shim in to lower the action, and you're adventurous, it's, in my opinion, it's certainly worth $200. I mean, that's Squier Sonic territory. And not that there's anything wrong with the Squier Sonic. I haven't played one. Some of my favorite guitars are Squier Bullets, surprisingly. Yeah, I think the value's there. Again, the build quality is really good. I just don't think the quality control is where it should be. But again, when you're dealing with budget guitars, that is usually a weak area, and clearly with this one, that's no exception. So anyways, April the 9th, 2024. Spring is just around the corner. We're on the roller coaster. It gets a little warm. It gets a little cool. But soon spring will be here. Anyways, kiss the people you love. Pet your cat. Pet your dog. Be nice to your children. Say hello to your neighbor. And have a wonderful afternoon. We'll see you next time. Welcome back, everybody. It is now April the 12th, 2024. So I got this guitar on Tuesday. It is now Friday afternoon. And I just wanted to add a few more thoughts before I commit this to YouTube. And the first one is that it's probably a huge mistake for me to post my videos with brief impressions when I first get a guitar, because as anyone who owns guitars knows, the longer you own it and play it, your impressions can change, and they can either go one way or the other. You can either like something more or not like it as much. This guitar I happen to like even more than when I first posted the video, or at least made the video. And so 3 days later I've been playing it. It takes a little while to dial this guitar in. Again, I think the two things that they should have done on this guitar was they should have not done the effects, and they should have added a blend knob so that you can blend between the piezo and the humbucker. Right now the only blending power you have is to raise or lower the humbucker, which, you know, once you get it dialed in, again, I'm not big on changing my tones 10 times in the middle of a song. Once I get something dialed in, to me it's more about the music than it is the guitar anyways. The hum issue is interesting because for the most part I'm not having it anymore. I think that's partly due to the fact that playing at living room volume, the volume's fairly low on this guitar. The tone is dialed back almost all the way, and yeah, there just doesn't seem to be a huge hum issue. You turn the volume up, the hum becomes present, so that would be an issue if I was playing live, which I never will do again. So for living room action, seems to be doing fine for the moment. Again, I'm waiting for the strings to calm down. When you put brand new strings on, they're incredibly bright, and this guitar has a brightness built in, especially on the piezo pickup. So in the coming days, I imagine that it'll settle down a little bit in the bright department. I have yet to put the shim in the neck to drop the action, which I will eventually, and I need to do a little more work on the fret ends. I brought them into, total acceptability to play. They're not cutting your hands. There's no blood flying around or anything. But to make them really butter smooth, I need to spend a little more time. But overall, I'm really pleased with this guitar. But the final comment that I wanted to make was I was in contact with the people at Bullfighter through Amazon's messaging system. And I must say that they're incredibly on top of things as far as answering you really quickly. They're very friendly. They answered my questions. They worked with me. We came to a satisfactory agreement on, just my feelings about the guitar. So anyways, they were a pleasure to work with. That's not always the case with any company. I mean, I've had problems with Fender and Gibson. I had a period of time where Gibson was just like ignoring my emails, and it's like, wow, they're like the big dog in the mix, and Bullfighter was just a little company in Japan, and they were just really good about communicating with me, and that was very much appreciated. So, again, as I've said time and time and time again, I would never recommend a guitar, but I would say this: if you have Strats, if you have Les Pauls, if you have Telecasters, if you have ES guitars, this is different. And I think I mentioned it earlier in the video, the key to getting a different guitar is to let it reveal itself to you. It's really tempting in the beginning to hit that first strum and go, wow, this doesn't sound like my fill in the missing blank, and you feel dissatisfied with it, and it's probably best to just let it reveal itself to you on what it is. And this guitar, again, is different, so just let it be different and enjoy it. And for the price, for just a little under $200, the closest thing that I can find to this is a Godin guitar, which again, I'm sure the quality is through the roof, the electronics are probably much better, on and on and on. But brand new, I think it's $1,100. And, sometimes if you, again, as I am, I try to concentrate on the song and the music, and the instrument is the tool of delivering that, and this more than does what it's supposed to do. Stays in tune. The tuners are not the highest quality as far as play or lash or whatever you want to call it, but once you dial it in, it stays in tune, and the intonation's good. They cut the nut really well, so the cowboy chords are all in tune down there, and again, I mentioned earlier, the fit and the finish on the body, on the binding, and the neck pocket is just outstanding. They did a really nice job. So anyways, I just wanted to add that because sometimes I sort of come on board with some quick impressions, and again, I probably should break that habit. I probably should wait a week before I do the final analysis, as it were. But yeah, so this is the Bullfighter K10 acoustic electric guitar, and so far so good. So again, thanks for joining me. We'll be back when we're back, because I only know what I know. Thank you very much.